Hey folks, welcome back to episode number 4 of Toppers Talk. And today we have with us Harsh Agarwal, who is an investment banker. He has scored a 99 percentile in NMAT exam with a 220 score in his very first attempt. He has also scored a 98 percentile in CAT with a staggering 99.7 percentile in quants. So Harsh has also won 45 national level B school competitions and has also been the student of the year for NMIMS Mumbai. Harsh has also been featured in a very popular show called as MTV LinkedIn Job Season 4 and has been selected among the 50,000 candidates. I'm sure you must have seen the show. So we welcome Harsh and let's get started. So hi Harsh, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So can you just tell us what is your profile like?
Yeah, so I have done my bachelor's from St. Xavier's College, Kolkata in accounting and finance. Thereafter, I worked for a commodities firm for 1 year before pursuing my MBA. And then I gave my CAT exams. I gave all the entrance examination and then ended up at NMIMS Mumbai for my MBA and then specializing in finance. From there, I got a job. There's one catch here that during summer internships, I did not even get a shortlist from that company. So it was a big challenge for me to get a shortlist first in the final interviews, and converting was that was not even something which I was thinking of. The first motto was just to get a shortlist, and that's why I had to do a lot of things and build my profile in such a way that the company would then shortlist me.
Yeah.
So now I'm working for the company, and it's been 1 year, and the experience has been wonderful over there. People are great, and the campus is very good. I think one of the best built campuses in India for any corporate house. So the experience is going very well at the moment.
That's really great. I think this might be the dream company for you.
Absolutely. I mean, when in summers I did not get a shortlist, that's when I suffered a lot. I mean, mentally I suffered a lot because this was something which I looked up to when I was joining NMIMS, because I always had a dream of getting into any IIMs, just like any other MBA grad. I mean, any other you would call any other MBA aspirant, but having not ended up at any IIM even after giving my best, like getting a 98 plus, but did not get any calls from the top 5-6 IIMs. I got a call from the new IIMs, but no call from any of the top IIMs, including IIM Shillong. So that was a heartbreak, and then I did not have any other option but NMIMS. So, but I could have given it. I could have repeated CAT, like I could have given it the next year, but then I thought that the return ratio, I mean, if you talk about the risk reward, it was somewhat seemingly favorable for me because I wanted to pursue finance. If I had to go for marketing, then probably I would say I would have given it one more time. I would have given a shot to CAT again. But because it was finance and I saw the list of companies that come to our campus, I was pretty sure that I will be able to make in one of those companies. But when I went there and because of my profile, I did not get a shortlist in summers for most of the companies. That's when it was an eye-opener for me, and that's when I decided that now it's time to build my profile so that in finals I don't have to suffer the same thing again and again.
Right. On that note, can you just tell us what was your profile like? Like, how did you build your profile?
Absolutely. So my academics were like, I had 86% in my 10th examinations. It was 94 in 12th. Somehow I managed it, and then in graduation it was sub 60, so it was 58% if you go by percentage terms, and when you convert it into a CGPA, it was barely, crossing 6, which was kind of a respite because our college allowed us to put our CGPA instead of percentage, so that was a breather for me in that aspect. But so this was my profile, and then I said I worked for 1 year at a commodities firm as a portfolio manager. So with this profile, I went to NMIMS. It was academic wise and plus extracurricular wise, I did not have anything special in my profile. So the CV that I had submitted for my B school interviews were very, very, you would say, bland, because there was no mix of things, and it was everything would fit in half a page, which was the worst thing because the bigger the CV is, the more is the work that you do, and my CV was hardly even fitting half a page because there was nothing to shoot. And that's what I saw in summer internships. Even though I had put a lot of academic projects just to fill it up and position of responsibility, I mean, I got into two committees in my college when I joined. So those things helped my CV to help my CV to elongate, but still, I mean, there was no mix. I mean, you just can't put projects and stuff and to make your CV stronger. And that's when I realized that these certification courses and these competitions will be the one who will be the differentiating factor between me and my peers if I start doing them. And after my summers, I started with these competitions, case studies, and get a lot of internships. And I did three internships, and all three were in different domains. So I might be a student who specialized in finance, but I did internships in marketing, I did internships in operations. So I had a mix of everything in my CV. And even in competitions, when I did competitions, it was not only just finance competitions. So out of 45, I think finance competitions would be hardly 25, 27. So I did marketing, I did operations again, in fact, I went into IT as well. It took a lot, but me not being an engineer, I even went into IT. And in finance also, I went into such things which I was not aware of. So I had to build that expertise through certification courses and through other stuff. There was a little bit, when I started doing these competitions, definitely you will not win on your first shot. But there I think I had some fortunes there because the first competition I participated, I won it. And that's when you call it you show a bone to a dog and that dog will run after that bone. So I think that thing happened with me, and after that the motivation came, now I should participate in all these things to make my CV a little stronger. So I had this thing in mind that I want to go to each IIM and defeat them in any of the competitions. And luckily I could do that in my second year. I mean, by the time I reached my final placement interviews, I was able to do that. So I got placed on one day. I mean, on one weekend I got placed, and the next weekend I went into IIM Lucknow, and that was the time when I cleared this hurdle of beating every IIM team. Because before that, I had done it at all IIMs. Only IIM Lucknow was left to help me complete my IIM Slam. And after my placements, just 1 week after my placements, I was able to do that. So that's when I stopped doing competition, because my motto was achieved. It was not just to get a placement. It was just to go to every IIM and experience it and see what kind of students that study there, the level of competition that's there. And luckily, I was able to put in the hard work which was required to overcome these hurdles.
So basically, you won 45 national level competitions. So that is commendable. So how did you get that much time to prepare for the competitions?
So in an MBA institute, any college you go to, there's a strict rule regarding attendance.
Correct.
That if you miss 75 to 80% of your attendance mark, your grades will be downgraded. The same thing was there in our college as well. So even after I participated and brought such laurels to our college, the college did not give me that exception, even though I was not going out for a vacation or something like that. So I barely managed the grade downgrades, because what I used to do is I used to manage my time in such a way that I did not take even one leave for my personal issues during the entire 2 years. So we had 20 classes for every lecture. So 4 classes were something which we were allowed to bunk. So in those 4 classes, I used to go to different colleges and then attend competitions. So that's how I did it. I mean, without even going through one downgrade in any of the subjects in all the 6 trimesters, I somehow managed, and then that's the entire thing of an MBA. So you are sent there and you work there to learn how to manage time and multitask. And that's why I had to do a lot of sacrifices as well. So even after staying in Mumbai, I hardly used to go to clubs, and I hardly enjoyed Mumbai nightlife, which is very, very famous. But yeah, I mean, towards the end of my MBA, when I was placed, I had 6-7 months, and that's when I actually enjoyed what an MBA life is all about in Mumbai. And that's when I can call that Mumbai was my campus. So the first day we entered college, the dean used to say that we don't have a campus, but entire Mumbai is your campus. I could not experience it till 1.5 years of my MBA, till the time I got placed. And after I got placed, I actually got to know that Mumbai was our campus, because that's when I explored Mumbai.
Correct. That's really amazing. So on that note, can you just tell us how did you prepare for the B school exams like NMAT and CAT?
So, if I talk about the preparation for these examinations, so I was never an achiever in life. I was always an average student or maybe a below average student. So for me, it was very challenging, because CAT happens in December, and by the time I had given I can say 10 to 15 mocks, my percentages were around 50, 60, percentiles, and the score that I was getting was around 50, 60. That was the score that I was getting. So I was actually thinking of doing something so that I could increase my percentile and marks. So the entire thing about attending tuitions or maybe taking tuitions at different coaching institutes was not working out for me. Like, I took tuitions from 2 institutes because I did not want to leave any gaps. I wanted to not leave any stone unturned. So I took two trainings from 2 coaching institutes, but none worked out for me. So what I did was, then I tried to go back to, what I was good at, which is Jugaad. And I somehow developed some techniques through, you could say, shrewd guesswork or maybe some kind of deliberations. So I used to give mocks and analyze them. So if it's a 3-hour mock, I used to analyze it for 3 days. So to understand what could have I done rather than implementing concepts, how can I use my brain to decode the answers? Because you don't have to reach to the exact answer. Even if you're close, you can mark an option and you can get it correct in CAT and in MAT, in any of the exams. So that was my technique, and it somehow worked, because once I developed this technique, my score it jumped from 60 to 135, and my percentile also jumped from 94, 95. Jumped from 60, 67 to 94, 95 in the mocks. And by the time I was actually going to sit for CAT, I used to score 98, 99 in the mocks. So I was confident that I would at least end up getting a 99 in CAT. But again, somehow the English section was something which I missed the truth. That's where I actually lost out on that 1 percentile. Otherwise, I could have actually crossed the hurdle of 99 percentile, or maybe I could have got calls from IIM Indore or Kozhikode, which I ultimately missed due to my graduation scores, obviously.
Right. So as you said that you used to analyze the mock for 3 days. So can you just tell us what was your technique of analyzing the mocks?
So my technique was, firstly, whatever I know from before. The chapters or the topics from which we were getting the questions. So I used to see what kind of chapters were in focus in these mocks. And if suppose there were questions from arithmetic, 50% questions were from arithmetic, I was never actually targeting to solve all the 34, 33 questions that came my way. I always targeted that even if I solved 20 questions, and that's what I did. In CAT, I just attempted 20 questions in maths, and my score was 60. So I got all correct. I did not even attempt the other 13, 14 questions, because I was sure that if I get these 20 correct, I will end up getting a 99% plus in that section. And that's how I tried to decode all the 3 sections. By not attempting much, I attempted not more than 55, 56 questions entirely out of those 100 questions or 80 questions, whatever were there. So I used to attend less, but only those questions I used to attend on which I was sure about, and on which I had done the analysis, like how to solve these questions. So if I'm spending 3 hours in my mock analysis, 3 days in my 3-hour mock analysis, I used to denote that 3 days into the topics for which I could decode. So you can't prepare a formula for every topic. That cannot happen. So if suppose my weak area was geometry, so I used to develop techniques for geometry, like how do I solve these 4 or 5 questions, which if I solve, I get a competitive advantage compared to the other people who are giving CAT. So that's how I try to manage somehow from here and there, and then through my guesswork and through some calculations. You just have to see the screen. If you read the question, if that processor is on, you'll be able to get to an answer which is, say, +5, -5% of the exact answer. And that's how I used to get to the correct options. Those were not entirely the correct techniques to solve questions, But in CAT, in these competitive examinations, even if you are close to the correct answer, you will definitely get it correct. So that's how I used to do it. I'm not even attempting to solve the questions. I just want a ballpark figure where the answer will lie, and that's how I used to mark these questions.
So, being a non-engineer, you scored 99.7 percentile in quants. So this is really amazing, and it actually is an inspiration for a lot of non-engineers. Now, getting back to your DILR strategy. So, what was your DILR strategy?
So for DILR, there were 6 sets or 7 sets which were there in the exam, and the sets also come from again specific topics. So what I used to do is, if there is a round table kind of a setting which is given, so I was very good at either round table settings, I mean solving what's the position of every person who was sitting on the table. That used to be my target, and apart from that, my target used to be the dice section. So there was a question on dice as well, like if you throw 2 dice, what is the probability of getting so those kind of questions. Again, these techniques which I used in quants, similar techniques I used in LRDI as well. So these 2 sections were actually correlated, and that's how I used to ace these 2 sections. Somewhere or the other, my English was suffering because these kind of concepts do not apply in English. So for English, you have to go through certain modules, and again, English, there's no way you can arrive at a correct answer. Any answer can be correct. The questions are framed in such a way, and that's how I missed out, and I just got a 90 percentile in English. Whereas in my LRDA and in my quants, I was near to 99 in both. Like in LRDA, I got a 97, and in maths, you already know it's 99 plus. So that's where I actually missed out. Otherwise, if I had scored a little bit more in English, like if I had got a 92, 93, I could have ended up at 99 plus. So for English, I would advise, if students can get hold of, I mean, if they can go through the Hindu editorials, that really helps, because the words and the kind of difficulty in understanding those passages, it can really help you to grasp things, because that's what I did not do, which I definitely regret after giving CAT. I just relied on reading books, and reading books does help. Like it did help, because I was pathetic in English, because I was scoring around 30-34 percentile in my mocks. So even to get it up to 90, it was a huge task for me. So I somehow got it up to 90, and then luckily but anyways, I did not get admission through CAT. So I had my NMAT to be the lifesaver for me.
Yeah, so coming back to NMAT, so what was your strategy for NMAT? Because NMAT is a completely speed-based test. So how did you attempt the NMAT exam?
So for NMAT, what I did was I had a target in mind that I will only attend those questions so I had divided NMAT exam into 4-5 rounds. First round, I'll only attend questions which I'm damn sure about, 200% sure that I'll get these right. And I used to write these questions, like I used to number these questions. So if suppose in the first round I got 70 questions done from my side, that means I already have 70 questions correct. Second round, I used to attend those questions which I was sure about, but not damn sure. Like I was 70 to 80% sure about those questions. So then I used to attend those questions. And in the third round, I used to attend only those questions which I was 50-50 sure about. That too, attempting a question means I'm marking an answer which I think is correct, which is not a guesswork. I think is correct is based on some kind of solving. And in the fourth round and the final round, I used to see how many questions are there. If there are 30-40 questions left, if there are 10-12 questions left, I used to mark all the answers as either B or C. That's the thing which people miss out. People just leave the questions and they come out, whereas they don't know that NMAT does not have negative marking. So you have to mark a question with either of the options, even if you do not know how to solve it. Because even if suppose you're attempting 10 questions like this, even if you get 2 correct, you have 6 marks. And that makes a difference. People end up getting 200, 204, whereas the cutoff is 210, 212. So those 2-3 questions which you might get correct, that's where people miss out. So always try to attempt those questions, and after that, when you are done with all these 4 rounds, then if you have time left, then go back to revising. I mean, checking the second round questions, the ones which you were almost sure about but not too sure, because that's what you can get correct. You can turn it to damn correct. I mean, damn sure about it. So don't go back to round 1 because you were already sure about it. Go to round 2 after attempting all the questions. And that's how I did it. And in the first attempt only, I luckily got 220. So I did not even have to go for my second attempt. Otherwise, NMAT is such an exam that if you give it twice, thrice, it keeps on going on. It keeps going on. So it's better you attempt it and ace it in the first instance rather than keep on giving it, because you have to fill the college forms also again and again. So it usurps a lot of money from students. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. So, what was your interview experience like for NMIMS or any other college?
The interview experience was pretty cool. I mean, they just asked questions on my work experience. It was revolving around my work experience. They also asked about current affairs, because at that time demonetization had just happened. So the questions were around current affairs. For me, if I give a percentage to say from which area my questions were, it was like 60% from current affairs and 30-40% from my profile. So mostly for an MBA grad, I mean for someone who is just entering into an MBA institute, you will mostly be asked questions on current affairs. And if you have a WorkX, then definitely WorkX. But if you are a fresher, they can sometimes ask you the concepts, like if suppose you are from finance background or from commerce background, they might just ask you some concepts in commerce. If you're an engineer, they might just get into thermodynamics or something like that. So it's basically for freshers, it can be anything. But for people who are at WorkX, 90% of the times they get away from answering the questions on techniques or maybe some things they might have learned during their undergrad. So that's what they kind of skip if you have work experience. So it was pretty chilled out, and I just sat for a couple of interviews. One was NMIMS and one was IMT. But my NMIMS interview was before IMT interview. So I was actually so sure about NMIMS that I did not even attend the IMT interview properly, because it was never my target. So I just gave two interviews.
Right. So one more question for the incoming batch of 2020-22. So can you just brief about the rounds of selection for the final placements?
So I would advise for people who do not have, or for engineers, or even for commerce grads who do not have anything related to finance in their CV apart from their specialization, which is going to be their MBA specialization. You can go for some certification courses from Coursera, from NCFM, from NISM, or you can even go for these specialized institutes like FinShiksha, EduCBA, because these institutes offer specialized courses on financial modeling, equity research, hedge fund managing, mutual funds. So these things can help you improve your concept learning, as well as these can help you gain certifications which you can put on your CV and get your CV somewhat stronger than what it was before. And apart from that, these courses will help you to develop the knowledge, but to prove yourself, but to prove that you have actually learned something, you got to do competitions, you got to win those competitions, and that's when you apply. So once you are learning through these courses and you're applying in competitions, that's when you both the skills, if you acquire, I think that will be more than sufficient to get into or any other good company.
Right. So what were the rounds specifically for any generic company? Like there would be a group discussion, and what are the other rounds for the interview?
Yeah, so for finance companies, you will generally not find general discussions. I mean, GDs will not be held. It will be mostly interviews, only personal interviews, and those can be like 4 or 5 rounds of personal interviews can happen. So for me, there were 4 rounds of interviews. Two were telephonic and 2 were face-to-face interviews. And that's where the decision is taken. So telephonic interviews are also, very normal for finance companies. They generally release a shortlist and then conduct interviews over call. And then when they come to the campus, they hardly interview 10 to 15 people whom they have selected from the telephonic interviews. So that's how the interview process for maximum finance companies happen. There might be 1 or 2 odd conduct GDs, but for most finance companies, you will not find general discussions.
Right. So, guys, I would also like to tell you that Harsh also has a YouTube channel. So, Harsh, can you just brief about your YouTube channel?
Absolutely. Do subscribe my channel. If you just have a look at it first, I will say, if you find the content is useful, then definitely subscribe my channel, because there will be more such content that will be put up in the upcoming days. So it will be great to reach out to a lot of people, a lot of students, and help them out on an individual basis or a group basis. It will be great.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Harsh, for doing this. I think your story, being an average guy, is really inspiring, and I hope it inspires a lot of people. Thank you so much for coming here, Harsh.
Thank you, Karma. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.